Hello!
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to another episode of Left and Correct,
The podcast where both of us are left, but only one of
but
us
only one of us
is correct.
is correct.
It's me.
It's
Look at me.
you. It's
It's
always been
me.
you. How are you doing today, Adrian?
Yes. How have you been?
I've been fine. The same thing. Still being mentally tortured by not finding work. But other than that, very peaceful. How was your 4th of July?
It was very noisy. My neighborhood, between the music and the fireworks, it was from about 4 o'clock to about midnight. It was like a club that I wasn't invited to go to, but I could hear it with explosions happening nonstop. So it was a lot. It was a lot. How was your 4th of July?
Just think in your 20s, you would have been dying for something like that. You
No,
would have
well,
loved it.
I mean, oh, but it's yeah, maybe that's yeah. The gentleman friend was definitely like, you like club music, and I'm like, not this, because uh, so I really it got to a point where I had earplugs in, these headphones, listening to white noise, and like sitting in like inside my apartment with the TV on, the air conditioner, and it was very much, it was a lot of sensory overload for me. How about you? Yeah, it really was. How about you?
I had a great time. I went to Queens, Astoria, to see
Ooh.
our mutual friend Christine Pinheiro.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, it was very nice. She invited me over for their barbecue. They had a very small gathering.
Good.
Her and her roommate.
Was everyone
It
practicing
was
social
extreme
distance?
precautions. They were wearing masks in their house,
Okay,
making everybody do hand sanitizers.
good.
It was good, but outside people weren't wearing masks.
Yeah,
But they
yeah.
actually have a quite sizable backyard. I tell you, Astoria is like kind of like the small town of your dreams. I mean,
It
I don't
really
know.
is. It really is. Like Astoria, every time I go to Astoria, I'm always just like, oh. It's very much like not like the city where I grew up outside of Boston, but like the next set of towns, like if Boston is the center, like the cities like immediately surrounding it, very much like Astoria, or Brooklyn,
Yeah,
and then it's like I'm like the first level, like, or the first zone outside of that, of like suburbia. But yeah, I love Astoria. It's very nice. Um
yeah.
yeah.
It was great. I spent the night at my friend Thomas's house. He's an old school friend, and he's got
Oh.
2 cats and a dog. And his dog, poor dog,
Oh, I
suffered.
know. All the dogs and cats. Even my fish. Even my fish, he was like hiding. So we have a little pirate ship, and we have like these plants coming out of it. He like slid himself in between like the leaves of the plants, and was just kind of hanging out there. It was I
Oh,
know. So there was a lot. And I'm like
that's
sad.
crazy. I
Yeah.
mean, but they happened again last night, didn't they? The
I
fireworks,
know. Yeah, they did.
and I was thinking they would potentially end, but I
No.
don't
These are
think
gonna go
so.
these are gonna go on forever. This is just our new normal now.
I guess so. What is
Oh.
normal? What is
We
the
don't
new
what is
normal?
normal? What is the new normal? Nothing
I was
is
thinking about this today. Something for us to talk about. Like, what if you could get everything you wanted for our society? If it could be
oh
structured exactly the way you wanted it to be.
I was gonna be like, I'd be thin, and
No, not I know
I
because
would
no, not us personally.
oh,
In
for
fact,
society, who cares? I'd
but
have
what?
connections in the industry.
Right? I'd have an agent. I'd have a
Right,
manager.
right,
I'd get a
what?
ton of auditions.
Right?
I wouldn't even have to audition. I'd just be put in
Just be
films.
put in things. Like
But yeah, what is your ideal American society if you could get it?
justice.
Okay.
Just I don't know. um accountability. I mean, yeah, justice, in terms of that. I don't know.
That's
this
okay.
is
I'm putting you on the
this is
spot.
a
I just
doozy.
thought of this
No, I
today.
mean that is, yeah, lots of things like means in which people have like the opportunities that are out there. It's not just like uh, it's a game that certain people know how to play, or certain families or certain types of people have it in before anybody else even is aware of the game or the system, where it is like there is actual equality and fairness for everyone, you know,
Yeah,
uh,
like an
whether
actual
it be
meritocracy.
right, like whether it has to deal with schools or jobs or housing.
Do you
um
feel like as a kid you were taught that we live in a real meritocracy?
I remember things being like, if you work really hard, yeah, if you work really hard, you get ahead. Um, but I do always remember there being, because I'm jaded, or maybe perhaps my parents were kind of just like, hey kid, certain people like they got it. Yeah, I remember when I was really little, I was a really good swimmer, and I wanted to be on the swim team at my hometown. And I get like, you try out to be on the swim team, um, but I didn't. I was an alternate. I wasn't actually on the swim team, and I was really really upset. But there had been like a disproportionate number of girls to boys, so it was like more, so like the next door neighbor, he got put on the swim team. I was a much better swimmer than he was, but I remember like my mom just being just like, I needed to do that. Don't worry about, and it was like, oh, or even, you know, uh, I was raised Catholic, like all witches, not all witches, but you know what I mean. But and wanting to be an altar girl, but my parish didn't have altar girls, and then just like no matter what I did, didn't matter because I couldn't serve in the church like the boys
Yeah.
could, like those kind of things, and being like realizing real quickly that like people got opportunities that I wouldn't be able to for stupid reasons, and so that just kind of blossoms into, oh okay,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. How about you?
Well, it's interesting because, like, yeah, you're a kid, and I mean, certainly I didn't grow up with a bunch of people like waving the American flag in my face every day. They weren't like Marines or something, and we didn't grow up on an army base. Um, but I've been thinking about this so much because, like, so much of society you just accept, and I'm sure that there is a academic term for this process. I don't know what it would be. That everyone who grows up in any type of society, we all just accept these like soft rules. Like you were saying, like how your parents said, like some people have it, some people don't. We always have that thing about, oh, people on the other side of the tracks. I remember adults saying that when I was a kid. Or, like you were saying with the church, it was the same thing. My church, I was in Lutheran, Missouri Synod Lutheran Church. Um, and I remember at one point learning that uh, even though women like worked in all aspects of the church and school, that they were not allowed to vote in the church. Like,
Ooh,
I don't know what they call it, but they
like
have like
church
I don't
politics.
know. They have like
Yeah,
meetings and then they vote on
right.
certain things for what and women were just like not allowed. And so it's like, okay, I was a little kid, I was taught that, but I don't remember immediately being like, oh well, that means there's injustice everywhere. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
I just was like, oh, okay, it's a thing. And then, knowing it as you get older, your brain starts to see like, okay, that's a legitimately crazy thing that we live in this era where we're supposed to say everyone has equal rights, but in this organization where women come and give their time and money, you don't let them have a say in
Right.
this thing. So as you grow up, it starts to come into you, but then but honestly, as a kid, like I feel like we don't see those injustices. It's also like, I feel like we often don't see, you like don't see your own economic class when you're a kid, you know?
Ah, well, oh, I guess I guess it depends on the family, right? Like
Yeah.
some people are very aware of the privilege they have, while other people are extremely privileged and assume that other people are as well. And then you've got people who, yeah, who know that they're not privileged or they're poor or whatever, and they see everyone else as, like, oh, you got it good because you have your own bedroom or what, whatever it could, whatever it could be. I i mean, like, looking back, I didn't realize how working class we were because my parents very much provided for me this, like, a middle class kid existence. Like, I went to summer camp, I had art classes. I mean, this was back in like the 80s and 90s, so there was still like music taught in schools and, drama and like those kind of things that in public schools you could participate in. But even like the extracurricular, like summer activities and stuff, it was, I never realized, and I was an only child, so I wanted something, I more than often got it, so what do you mean? What do you mean money? What is that? Um, so it really wasn't until I was much older, looking back, being like, oh, okay, then, that's what sacrifice and all that sort of stuff. Like,
I
oh, all
wonder
right.
specifically too with class, because like my family has been, I would say, in 3 or 4 different class levels throughout my lifetime. You
And
know,
that's,
like
yeah, yeah. Like
like
people come into money, they don't have so much money. Things
yeah, like well, they
change,
were doing
jobs
well.
change.
My dad just had to change his career. They got super duper poor. We're talking like $10,000, $15,000 a year. But I guess it was a
Wow.
choice because he wanted to become a minister.
Okay.
And then he works his way up in the ranks of that, but they still don't pay a lot. And then he gets to a church where he ends up getting paid a lot for the area. And then all of a sudden, we're like, I would say in the top third of the middle class, and like we have cars and a boat. And like
Ooh.
there was never a discussion in my family. My family never talked about money at all,
Yeah, we
ever,
didn't
or what any of it
either.
meant. I used to get so mad at them about that because I'd be like, I don't even know what a checkbook is. Like you raised me wrong.
Right.
Um,
I remember doing the
and
whole like my college fund, and they're like, college fund. Ha! And I'm like, you have cursed me to a life of debt in my student loans. So that,
but I wonder, like, I don't really have a point for this. I just wonder, like, how many people, our parents seem to like want to protect us a lot of
of
times.
course.
Or they just are ignorant of the idea of talking about money or class. And so they raise their children in a bubble because everyone wants their children to feel fine. That seems like
Right.
good
But
parenting.
I think if you look at the way families were structured, during the 19th century. Like, I'm thinking like city life in like tenements and stuff. Every single person in that family was everyone was aware of money and what money they didn't have. Every single member of the family worked. And if they couldn't work, it was like such a loss of revenue or even their own safety. And so having so many people living that existence, like having gotten out of that, it's sort of like we don't want to. I perhaps it's some kind of like generational trauma of like, let the children be children. They don't need to make fake flowers for ladies' hats because they have small fingers. Like that kind of thing.
That's
Or
very true because,
yeah,
like, I mean, until like FDR came in and brought like socialism and like higher
but
wages to
he
working
didn't
people,
bring in socialism. I mean, it
he
was
brought
like
it all
those
in.
those sort of
Uh,
those labor. Speaking of, I was watching Newsies on which I hadn't seen in years. My favorite movie about Gilded Age New York and labor unions, but like these young boys selling newspapers and throughout New York City, and like they would have to pay. It's based on a true story. So like they would have to pay these publishing companies for the newspapers, sell them, and if like they'd be out of money if they didn't sell all of them or if the weather was crappy and like all this sort of stuff. But like the whole the new like the new newsboys who like come onto the scene, they're forced to work because the father of the family like hurt his arm in the factory and he didn't have a labor union to protect him. So they were out of money. And so the two boys had to go become newsies. And so it's like this was made for like teenage girls. And so it's just kind of like, but there's a lot of truth here. Um,
Yeah.
but that sort of like people, these labor unions being formed at the turn of the 20th century, long before like before FDR, but
Right. 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 Right.
he was like in Harvard while this was happening. But so
He was in
it's
Harvard
just
teaching socialism.
that, yeah. I'm a student, but I'm also a teacher. So, socialism. I can't feel my legs. But oh,
Too soon.
too soon. It's too soon. Um, but yeah, perhaps that's the case. But people are struggling. People do struggle. It's talking about money in the 20th century, like in a lot of ways, became taboo, um, because of course, you look at everything is about consumerism and keeping up with the Joneses and materialism and that kind of thing. When we know that like life is never what TV tells you it is. We know that, and yet at the same time, it's we think that there's some like this is what life is like. Like I can imagine like 50 years from now when people look back and be like the Kardashians and all these people getting Botox at 25 and like all that kind of stuff. Even though that's not reality, it's a stilted view of reality. And it is a reality to some people, not everybody, but how it filters down is yet to be seen.
Yeah. It's
Since
interesting. You and I are born right on the cusp of when the massive, income boom ends, right? When Reagan comes in, that is directly when you can see wealth continuing to go up while wages stagnate, you
right.
know. So you and I think, get the benefit of sort of the leftovers, the tail end of that, like, 40 years of perpetual growth and whatever. But
Yeah.
we were also forced into the world where all that started decaying,
Oh,
you know.
yeah. I mean, like, I literally graduated college 9 months to the day after 9/11. So that was the world that I entered. And then I moved to New York, went to AMDA. And so it's always been this uncertainty. And then, like, it's like the second, so I was 28 during the recession in '08. And it was like everything fell apart. It's like, oh no. And now here we are. So it's like every 10 years or so. So I think I noticed a lot of people I know and friends who are younger than we are who are like, I've lost my job. It's like, it's nothing, kid. You'll be fine. I've been through it before. It's just, I mean,
I
it's a
do
little
feel
different. It's a little
slightly less
different for,
neurotic not
oh
having a job
yeah,
because I have been through it before.
right.
Um, yeah, it's tough. I mean, so much of your job is tied up with your identity especially when you're younger. But,
Yeah.
what was I
But
gonna
I also
say?
think
Like,
that mindset is definitely true for people whose personalities and are tied up with their jobs, right? And I do think there's like so many like our jobs are not our identities. What we, it's what we do for paychecks, but it's not who we are. A lot of people's mentality is it's like, well, that's your job, so you're a lower person. It's like, no, I just needed what? Like, you know, like
yeah,
I was an assistant personal shopper. I wasn't a personal shopper, therefore I was a garbage person. Like, no, I have not someone who works in sanitation. I mean like a lower
yeah, yeah,
class
yeah, yes,
individual, like, but it's like I was treated that way when I worked at Bloomingdale's. It's like, no, I have a BA. I'm an intelligent woman. I am an artist, and like this is what I do for a paycheck. What? That doesn't define who I am. And so many people, yeah, it's all just like I have to do this. So I wonder, in like the age of Corona, where a lot of people have been furloughed or let go, like I hope that they're like taking that moment to reflect on themselves and be like, what do I want? You know?
I wonder. Yeah, I mean, a lot of work is useless. I've had many jobs where, I mean, my career for the past 10 years in testing is interesting because it's actually like essential, but
Yeah.
there were many times that it was also like weeks of nothing to do because you aren't changing the program every 5 minutes. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, not if you're a good business. So I would have so much time. I mean, I'm sure you remember me complaining of being so bored, at
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
I mean, I would give anything to be back there. But you know what? To go back to what we were talking about people talking about money and talking about class, it sort of makes sense if we were in you know, that sort of boom times. We're in the end of that people develop that sort of bourgeoisie ethic of we don't talk about money because it's beneath us. Money shouldn't matter because we
It's
just have it.
ghost.
Do
Right.
you think do you think that in these new times that are coming and are here, the suffering times, the less that people will get a different ethic and be more comfortable
I think
talking
so.
about?
I hope so, because particularly in terms of like this like structure of what jobs are considered important or essential, particularly for us New Yorkers in the past couple of months, like it's been people who worked at grocery stores, it's been people who do delivery, it's been all these jobs that like, you know a lot of people in these, people who go to grocery stores, they don't even look at the person behind the counter, let
Right.
alone like it's like these transactions of like no one's actually interacting with anyone. There's no human connection. And like if there is, it's usually very tense and like condescending, But whereas in light of all of this, it's like, oh, these are, a lot of folks being like, they do such good work. It's like, yeah, no shit, they always did.
They
Like
always did.
they
Well, it's
always
absurd
did.
too. They're also like it is very interesting that we started during this corona phase. We called these people essential workers and gave
Right.
them their own special class, and yet they are by the majority the least paid and
Yeah,
most, like, I would say, abused workers. In that, like,
absolutely.
I don't know about you, but in most of the jobs I've had vacation time. I have had like sick days. Usually, especially with tech companies, it's like unlimited sick days.
Oh,
It's like if there's
oh,
an emergency, don't come in. You don't feel good,
oh,
don't come
wow.
in.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
not like that. And like,
yeah. But
it's
if
like
you're
it's
an
kind of
hourly
like an
worker,
hourly, somewhat retail worker. It's
sure.
not like that at
But then
all.
you know exactly what I'm saying is that
Oh yeah.
you're in that level, even though now we know and we call them, they're essential. Like,
Hmm.
humans can't eat without these people working.
Right.
And
Right.
yet they get treated like you're 5 minutes late, you're fired. There's no
Right.
vacation for you.
Right.
We're gonna cut your hours. We're gonna add 50 hours to your
Yeah.
week. You know,
So I like in the wake of that, and talking about fights for 15, like continue like making $15 like stand. It is in the city, right? Right.
I
That
actually
is.
don't know.
I think it
I know
is.
it's higher
Yes,
here.
it's 15 in the city for minimum
I'll
wage.
find out in
Yes, it
five
is. It
seconds.
is. But it isn't nationally, and I know there's been these grassroots fights, and like it is like in certain places all throughout the country. Um, and like that alone would not so necessarily so in New York City, like minimum wage really should be like $35 an
Yeah,
hour.
yeah.
Let's be honest, But in Kentucky, that would be wonderful, So or
Well,
in
even this fight for 15, I mean, if you follow left wing economics even a little bit, just a simple calculation of if minimum wage had been tied to inflation,
right,
last time I checked, it would have been like $28
right,
would be the
right,
actual minimum wage.
yeah.
So even
So
that's a big compromise. Bernie Sanders doing a big compromise at
well,
the
that's
$15.
it's that's been going on long before Bernie Sanders, but
True, true.
it's so I would like to think that in the age of all of this, like people's understanding about work that people do, or like having empathy for people who do all kinds of jobs. Like there's no job is more degrading than the other or better than the other. They just all serve different purposes. Like it's something, I don't know if it's like this in other countries, but it's something very uniquely American where like people feel entitled to treat others like crap who are
Yeah.
just doing their job. Like
Yeah.
the whole Karen thing began as it's like black women working in retail or like service positions experiencing the this like awful entitlement of a certain like social structure or a certain class of white female entitlement. And having worked in retail, I've experienced it too. So like I
Yeah,
always
you have
call
horror stories.
if I see a woman in white pants, I freak out. Like it's that's like that. I know what that is. So it's like so like it is real. And like why are these people like this? And I like working retail, having been like when these women would have these fits about nothing, and I would just think to myself, it's just like how sad one's life must be where like alterations for a pair of pants that are not necessary. It's not like I need to wear these tonight for the award that I'm being given for saving the lives of children and kittens in throughout the world. Like, no, it's just like, I want these pants, Adrian. This is unacceptable. And you're like, what? You live on Park Avenue. You've got enough pants till tomorrow when they're ready. Like, so it's stuff like that where
But those people, they live in a culture of that. That's the
oh
moment
yeah. And I always think
abusing
like
other humans get them what they want.
as bad as I was ever treated, I'm like, thank God I'm not a waiter. Like the like those type of people, what they must be like at restaurants. Oh,
Ugh,
oh, oh,
ugh,
oh.
ugh.
I can't imagine. Or like if they like hire out a contractor to like do work on their house or what. Oh, I couldn't even imagine. Couldn't imagine. You know.
It's crazy.
But it's real.
It's crazy
It's
and it's real.
yeah.
It's
But
crazy
I'd
and it's
like
real.
to think
I don't. Oh, go ahead.
I just but like in the face of everything now, I hope that more people who aren't necessarily like that level of bizarre, like 1% entitlement, they have more compassion for other people.
I wonder. I wonder. I certainly believe because I think you're right in that most people going about their daily lives suddenly realize like grocery store workers are decent people
Yeah.
who are needed. But
Cool.
I wonder if there's, and I highly doubt that there's any way that's going to trickle up to management or to corporations.
Ugh, yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
it's this thing that anyone who runs a corporation, labor is seen as a cost. It's not a benefit. It's not
Yeah.
part of production. It's not an
I
essential thing.
yeah.
It's just
And
always
like
something to
I
be
will say
reduced.
like as when in Minneapolis when everything went down and the Target got set on fire. And like you've got your people over here who are like F Target, let it burn, like let all those chain stores burn, who gives a crap? And you have people over here who are like, oh, the property. Oh, and I was like, I don't care about it. Like, like what? It's like the people who work there, like if like they have schedules, like what's gonna happen? What's the business going to do for them? Like like I don't
And the
care about
answer
the
is
actual
probably nothing.
no, no, no. They Target released a statement saying that everybody who works at that place was going to be taken care of, that they would be getting paid. I have not followed up
Taken
with
care of
this.
means taking them out beside the building and
Oh no.
putting them out of their misery.
Oh man, no. I hope not. But at least I was like, all right, like that to me, it's just like okay. There's people who are like, I'm supposed to work tomorrow, and now my job is gone. Like what? Where do I go? Um,
It's always so complicated.
but if a corporation as large as Target can definitely take care of the 300 employees who probably work there, it's and all of those corporations. Actually, since talking about Bloomingdale's, I got out a year ago, but a lot of my friends who were still working there, like obviously in March when the store closed down, everybody got furloughed. But now Bloomingdale's reopened in phase two, and a
Mm.
lot of my friends did not get their jobs back.
Why?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
B-
jeez.
Because, it's like downsizing or, like, oh, restructuring. It's sort of like this grand of a much bigger, restructuring plan that had been happening long before the coronavirus even hit, where it's just like, So and these are all like, union members. And my theory is that because Macy's owns Bloomingdale's, so like Macy's Inc.
Hmm.
Doesn't want its employees to be unionized because
Yeah.
then they can fire at will and all that kind of stuff. So using this as the opportunity to be like, all right, if we're going to rehire these people, that it's based on like seniority or this or that. And so like letting go of people who they deem as like not essential, but who are, it's like, how are you going to ship your things out if no one's there to pack it? Like, but it's not my problem because I don't work there anymore. But it's just it's crummy. But then Macy's has the money to have all these unnecessary fireworks displays throughout the city last week. When I mean, we've got fireworks every night. We don't need
Yeah, there were
Macy's
free
fireworks.
fireworks everywhere, right? We didn't
Right.
need Macy's to do anything.
No, no. And that's money, So like what like and that's the thing. Like a corporation could have been like, look, we put on a July 4th fireworks show that costs millions of dollars and we can get Mariah Carey to sing and like all this sort of stuff. Taking that money and then being like, we're gonna put it back into the corporation towards our employees. Oh, you're a hero. Like that's the kind of stuff that we need right now. And people would be yeah, that would be the kind of world that I want to live in if I had my way.
Great. Macy's on every corner in Adrian's fantasy world.
No, no, no.
Well, that's our time, though. So
Yeah.
let's say goodbye. Thanks for listening in. Until next time, I've been
Yes.
Zach Sommerfield.
And
I have been.
I'm Adrian Sexton.
We can never nail the ending on these
No,
calls. And we have been
left and
left
correct.
and correct.